welcome to my 11th episode, I think it is, of my creative podcast. I was going to say knitting podcast. It normally is knitting, mostly is knitting. It is still knitting today, but I sneak a few other bits and bobs in there as well sometimes. Today, looking at what I've got with me on the floor, there's going to be a bit of knitting, a bit of sewing, something else I've made, and maybe a little bit of chit chat. And then maybe a bit about the shop update I recently had, because there's still some things left in there that might be of interest to you. And a bit about the knit along I'm co-hosting with Harriet at the moment as well. Sorry, all my words are not coming out right this morning. I really need a cup of tea, but I've only just poured it and it's a little bit too hot, so I'm going to have to wait a moment before I have any. But anyway, I've been having my bank holiday weekend 2 weeks later than everyone else in England. I worked the bank holiday 2 weeks ago. We had a bit of a project with work. There was like a big festival in town and we had an installation as part of it. So I worked most of that weekend when everyone was off having fun. So I've had my long weekend this weekend. It's Monday today, my bank holiday Monday. And I've just come back from spending a couple of days with my mother down in Devon. She was house sitting a house down there because the owners have a little dog and they're in America for a month because their daughter's getting married. I believe they are American, so it was easy for them to go back because, you know, it's going home. And yeah, it was really lovely. It was lovely to kind of have a mini holiday, see my mother, see her dog, the owner's dog, which I completely bonded with. It was so cute. Not really my kind of dog either. I like really roughy, tufty, scruffy terriers. This was the tiniest little, I guess it was a handbag dog. I don't know what it was. But it was just so sweet and so calm and really, really affectionate. So I kind of bonded. So yeah, I really want a dog. But no, I can't. My life is not conducive to having a dog at the moment. I'm out of the house too much. Anyway, a bit of a ramble. I spent the weekend by the sea. It was really lovely and beautiful. A little bit of knitting time, but not tons. Enough. I made up for it last night though. So yeah, anyway, I'll crack on. I guess I'll start with the knitting works in progress. I have no finished knitting projects this month. Gosh, my words. I do have a sewing finished, which I'm wearing, but I'll talk about in the sewing section later. But yeah, so knitting. So literally this morning, I finished doing the colour work on my Beetle Magic jumper, which I am going to steek and make a cardi. So that's why it's got this weird bit here. So I probably can put it on actually. I put an extra cable in so that I could show you a bit better. This is going to mess my hair up. Trying to see in the camera where the steek is. So there we go. So I don't know if you can actually tell, maybe you can. I'm not that happy with the way I cast on the ribbing. I talked about this last time. I used an extra stretchy cast on. I think in all honesty I'm probably going to end up taking the cast on out, picking up, maybe doing an extra row of ribbing and then binding off in normal ribbed bind off. Because it's going to be a cardigan, so it doesn't even need all that stretch that I put in. But I think, I mean, I'll look after it's been blocked, but I think it's highly likely it's going to just look a bit wayward. But anyway, as you can see, I will cut down the middle here, when it's finished obviously. And I have all my beetles. So this is the Beetle Magic pattern by Katie Greenbean. I've spoken about it before. So it comes in a really pretty printed booklet, which I don't have with me, but I have shown that to you before. I'm knitting it in this is some thrifted British yarn I bought on a cone, which I dyed with henna, which is what I used to dye my hair, and it came out this brown colour. And for the beetles, I'm using 2 minis I had for my advent calendar last year by Mammoth Fibre Co. I think the colour was Rufus's Christmas jumper. I got 2 of the same colour by accident, but they're quite tonal if I get a bit closer, maybe you can see. Although, you know, rubbish phone camera, maybe not. They do look quite flat coloured actually in the camera. But there is actually quite a lot of variation to this in the shade of blue. Maybe if I post a photo on Instagram or something, you'll be able to see, because I'm sure I will take a picture. But I quite like that. The original version that Katie Greenbean did had a yarn called Metamorphic, I think, which actually just makes me think of the Kafka story, Metamorphosis, with the, it wasn't a beetle, was it? It was something, I'm not going to get into that. Literature was what I studied. I could get into a deep rabbit hole of stuff there. But the yarn was like lots of different colours in the skein. Made me think a little bit actually of Spin Cycle, but not really the same. So the fact that I've got quite a lot of variation in tone, maybe you can see that one there, means that it's kind of got that same effect, but actually it's just blue and brown. So yeah, I'm not over the moon with my shade of brown. I think it looks a bit richer on camera than it does in real life. In real life the colour is quite flat. But hey ho, this is what happens with naturally dyed yarns. You don't really always know what colour you're going to get. And I think probably the overall effect will be nice. I don't know why, but I think this jumper's cardigan looks really handmade. And I don't want to say that in like a disparaging way, but I kind of feel like, I don't know, my Let Lopi jumper, it didn't look to me like massively handmade. This does, and I don't know whether it's because it's before it's blocked, it's a little bit like scrunched in places. I'm really hoping that when it's blocked it hasn't got that scrunched up look and that will look a little bit more settled, or whether it's the colours, maybe it's just a bit flat looking and that's why I think it looks really handmade. I don't know, but I'm hoping my floats will be okay. I'm proud of how neat they are actually. This is the first time I've really seen it all sort of like laid up flat. I could do with having another cable in, just to pull it out a bit more. As you can see, there's still quite a lot of, it could be pulled out quite a lot more. Yeah, because I'm bunching up there. But I've run out of cables the right size and connectors. I have just ordered some more actually, because I've got quite a few projects on the go that are on the same size cable. So I had to borrow a cable from my shawl. I was knitting my shawl and it was on 2 cables joined together. I had to scrunch it all up into the tiniest bit of cable so I could pinch the long cable from that to add on to this. But I think I could actually knit with it like this now. So that means I'm going to need more cables. But yes, that's that. Let me put that down out the way. If you wiggle, I apologise. It's because you're sat on top of 2 tins, a tiny tripod and a ironing board, and it's not the most stable situation. And my floorboards are really old and creaky. So anyway, there's that. I'm hoping this has cooled down enough for me to have some. That's better. I do find it cringy when people show off their drinks and cups, but I did actually buy this cup whilst I was on holiday and it was so pretty. I'm absolutely in love with it. And it's actually sort of motivated me to use a teapot. I normally don't. I'm a bit of a heathen. I put tea leaves in my cup and pour boiling water over it. And I just drink like a giant mug full of tea that way. I hate bad quality tea, so I do drink really good quality tea, which means it comes in tea leaf form. And I just, over the years, being a student, not having the correct stuff around, I've just kind of gotten used to it. I also have really gappy teeth, so it's not really a problem. But yeah, it has helped with buying this cup because it's kind of like, I guess, a hybrid of a mug and a teacup. I kind of feel like it's more appropriate to be making the tea in a teapot. So yes, I've been doing it properly and it has been very enjoyable, I have to say. So yes. My next work in progress then. So I think last time I showed this to you, I had just done the heel, or was just about to do the heel. I think I just done the heel actually, because I kind of remember talking about it. But I've pretty much finished my first toe-up sock. and I have made decent headway on the second. So you can see. So this one, sorry, I had a complete mental blank then. I was thinking, what did I tell you about last time? Whew. Maybe I should start again, but I'm not going to. Sorry. I bought these, which I've shared loads of times before now. I've been knitting these for quite a while. I bought these 3 mini skeins that come, well, they don't come in skeins, they come in balls. And I'm knitting them toe up. I split each ball in half and I'm knitting them toe up so I use up all the yarn. So this is 3 half of the mini balls. There's like a little bit of pink left for me to bind off and that's it. And so they are going to be different. As you can see, the toes are different colours. The purple's my favourite, so I'm hoping to have more purple on the leg than I have on this one because there's quite a lot of pink here. And I definitely would prefer it if it had been the balance had been the other way around, because it's the leg you're going to see more. So they will, what do they say? They'll be sisters, not twins. Don't really like that saying, but that's what it'll be. So I guess I'm about, looking at it, maybe a third of the way through the foot. That has been my Zoom knitting of late. I also realised I can fit this into my tiniest handbag, just about. So I have been carrying it around a bit as well, so that's been quite useful. And actually this is a bag I made a couple of years ago. The fabric I bought whilst I was on holiday in Japan, and so it's like a nice souvenir. It was a fat quarter, which I think I just stitched in half, or cut in half, and then, yeah, I don't know, it's not terribly well made to be honest. But I love the fabric, I think it's really pretty. It's got all sorts of bits and bobs on it. I mean, it's obviously not of Japan, but yeah, lovely all the same. And then my last work in progress, the shawl has been abandoned for now. I'm not working on it at the moment. Too much going on, because my other work in progress has a deadline on it, but not a massive deadline. Oh gosh, oh no, I hate it when I scrunch up patterns. That's annoying. It's because it's been shoved in my bag whilst travelling. My other work in progress, I'm just going to get this out of the way so it doesn't get any more crushed, it's for the knit along. So for those of you who follow on Instagram or saw me speaking on the last episode, Harriet Wildwood and I are hosting a knit along for the Minimalist Cable Cardigan by Carina Spencer. Now I was going to bring my ratty old green cardigan along to show you why I wanted to knit this pattern, but again I haven't. I said I would last time and I didn't, and I haven't today either. But anyway, it's a really lovely v-neck, I guess, cardigan. It's got cables on the front, and that's the only place there are cables, just on the front here. You knit the fronts and then the back, you join them together, you do inset shoulders, and then you knit the sleeves in the round, inside out, because it's reverse stockinette. So Harriet and I started this the first week of September. We did a live chat, which is on Instagram. It's saved on my profile so you can see that. And we've got a few prizes that we're going to be giving away as part of the knit along. I'm going to give away some autumn stitch markers. She's going to give away one of her beautiful project bags. Carina Spencer, the designer of the pattern, is going to give away a kit for one of her hats. I'll put all this below. And the Fibre Company, who make the yarn that's originally the pattern's designed in, they're giving away 2 skeins of yarn, and they have a code which I think is just about still valid, or maybe it's valid at the end of this month, which I will put in below as well. I went into a lot more detail about this in the last episode, but you know, suffice to say, we've started the knit along now, and I think Harriet and I are about the same stage. So you start with the right front, I believe. I'm knitting mine in the colour Ambitious, and the yarn is called Law. It's really lovely and tweedy, and actually surprisingly soft for a rustic yarn. I say surprisingly soft in comparison to other rustic yarns I've used. It is soft. Maybe it's not if you're sensitive, but it feels like wool, so I'm really enjoying it. And I'm at the point now where I'm going to start doing armhole shaping. So I've not really knit many cable things before. I've not really knit a textured item on this scale before. So it is taking me some time to wrap my head around it. I will say, if you are a beginner knitter, which I still feel like I am, to be perfectly honest, like I've still got a lot of firsts, doing the swatch is really helpful, because, and I can post a link to this below. Actually, it's really interesting how different this feels, because I've blocked this, to the unblocked. This feels like quite drapey in comparison. That's really interesting. Oh, lovely. But the swatch that she suggests you do, you end up doing 2 cables, a bit of the seed stitch, reverse stockinette and ribbing. So you're testing all of the stitch patterns, and there are a few different needle sizes in this that you use, and then you come up with this square. So I found this really helpful to get my head around the basics of the cable stitch pattern, and because you've got to maintain the pattern here and then there's a chart here and it's all in one row, so you've got to remember, I mean obviously you put a stitch marker in, but you know, seed stitch, row of cable, seed stitch. Am I doing the right, is it purl or knit for that part of the seed stitch? There is quite a bit to remember. It's easy, I guess, if you're an established knitter or once you get into the role, but getting into the role, if you're newer like me, I've only been knitting for a year or two, yeah, is something to think about. But that was a good help to start with. And you know, like, it's half of the front, so it's not even that much. I mean, I'm doing the second size, you know, bigger size would be a bigger piece. But yeah, I have definitely made some mistakes, but I don't think any on a scale that are visible, really. I did notice that all the cables except this one, they cross over at the start, and this one doesn't cross over at the start. They just sort of start next to each other. I would imagine at that point I was cuddling a little dog watching TV. So this is why I shouldn't have a little dog. No, that's not true. That's not a good enough reason. I realised that when I was just about where I am now, and I decided it was too far back to rip back and do anything about. Had it been a couple of rows, I probably would have done, but you know, like a good couple of inches. And I think though it is somewhat visible in its isolated state right now, once I've got it on, nobody's going to know. I don't think anybody's going to care. I'm hoping it won't bother me in the long term. But yeah, it's just because I could drop down those stitches and go back. I think if it was all plain knitting above, I would. But dropping back all of those cables, I would end up making a bigger pig's ear of it. Then, you know, it would just look worse. I have dropped back cable stitches before, and if it's just 1 or 2, it's really not that bad. I think maybe I did 5 and it wasn't that bad. And I mean, that cable was going in the wrong direction, so it was really obvious. I had to do something about that. At least they're going in the right direction. But yeah, so I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm going to put a lifeline in now before I do any more, because I'm doing the armhole shaping, and I really think that this is where I could get into a muddle, because you're doing this pattern, that chart, and decreasing all at the same time. So I could get confused, and that's okay, you know, like if I put a lifeline in, I can just rip straight back and do it again. It's not a problem. So I am working this up quite quickly because it is quite narrow, but I think it will stretch out quite a lot, so that's good. And that's fine, you know, I am only knitting the second size, and I'm really excited. I absolutely love it. I'm kind of broadly aiming to do like the left front September. Maybe I'll do the back, or start the back next, because the back is reverse stockinette, like it's ribbing and then reverse stockinette. So I think I decided that'd be really good to do zoom knitting, pub knitting, because until you get to the armpit, there will be no shaping, I don't think. So it'll just be like one big block of knitting, which I initially thought, oh god, that's going to be really boring. but that's really good for the pub. So I want to get that going so I can get as much pub knitting in as possible, and Zoom knitting. Although I would like to get my socks finished as well, so I guess those two projects will be competing for minimal brain space time. And I'm trying to do the more complicated parts when it's just me. I've been binge watching Downton Abbey whilst doing this. Again, maybe something quite interesting happened on Downton Abbey at that point. I don't know. This is just what happens, isn't it? So yeah, and you can see I'm using, so I've got this one here. These are all progress keepers that I've made, and I do still have a couple left in the shop if you're interested. I put this one here so that I could clearly see which side was the front, so it's attached to the knit fabric rather than into an actual stitch. It's just hanging on the front, because whilst I was getting into it, I was kind of finding it hard when I picked it up and put it down to keep track of where was the front and where was the back. It is obvious now with the cables, but I find it quite comforting knowing that there is a really obvious symbol that is the front. I then have, it's a toadstool, and it's got a little star and a glass bead. And this is probably one of my favourites I've made because I really like mushrooms. It's really pretty. And then up here I have, it's a pumpkin. Someone said I've got to hide my face. It's a pumpkin with a little leaf and a glass bead. And then this one isn't really in the shop in that kind of way. It's got similar, it's got acorns on it as well. So mine's just a leaf with a bead and a clip, but there are similar ones in the shop and they have acorns on as well. But yeah, so one of the prizes are going to be some autumn themed stitch markers, so kind of similar to those. So that's that. Yeah, and I've got it in one of my project bags I've made. I think I'm going to pour myself another cup of tea as well. I'm not doing this with my non-dominant hand, isn't working for me. So before going on to talk about what would make sense next, before talking about my sewing works in progress, I just wanted to share with you like one mini little non-fibre thing that I did yesterday, which is still creative. And I wanted to show you because I think it's something that maybe people would think isn't that easy to make, but actually it is. It's a bit of an investment in materials to start with, but I think long term it's going to save me an absolute fortune. And in fact I think it already has. So I have been using solid shampoo. Sorry, that one's not quite dry. Solid shampoo probably, I mean, since I was a student, so almost 10 years. I can't remember at what stage of being a student I gave up using bottles of shampoo. I didn't use them religiously whilst I was a student. I think by the time I left uni I was religiously using solid shampoo, and then a few years ago I switched to solid conditioner as well. That took me a bit longer because I couldn't find one I liked. And I know lots of people have struggled using solid shampoo, but actually I think it was last summer I discovered a maker, Bottega Zero Waste, and I can link her below, and she was doing these free classes and she explained why some shampoos, solid shampoos, work for people and some don't, why some make your hair continue to look really greasy. Now I'm not going to go into like masses of information about it, but I do have a story, a highlight on my Instagram that has some information about it, because it was a complete revelation to me. I realised that half the solid shampoo out there is a complete con. It's just soap and it's the wrong pH for your hair essentially. So because it's the wrong pH, it doesn't actually clean your hair properly. It sort of actually just imbalances the pH of your scalp, and like that's why it looks gross. And I was like, oh my god, so that's why the ones I've been buying from Lush where I was buying them from. That's why those ones work. And then the other ones I've been buying from the local small production zero waste shops weren't working for me because they weren't the right thing really for your hair. So with that class, she explained to you how to make them. And then you can't really buy the ingredients in small amounts. That's why I said it's a bit of an investment to start. But then I made some solid shampoo. This was a year ago, this one I'm talking about. And it was absolutely perfect. And the good thing is, the ones from Lush are actually made from palm oil, sustainable palm oil. I mean, everyone has their own opinion about that, but palm oil nonetheless, and they kind of hide that, and I didn't really like that they were doing it. So I've made mine using coconut oil. So this really only has 3 ingredients. It's coconut oil, and then it's 2 others with really long names that are derived from coconuts. So yeah, this is basically coconut. And then I've added a preservative, a natural preservative, and some essential oils. This has got lavender and tea tree in because they're good for your scalp, and some dried calendula petals just for a bit of prettiness from my roof garden. So yeah, I mean, essentially you have, and I will link her, she's probably got a video of it on her YouTube, and I'll find that and I'll link that if anybody wants to watch it. You have one of the ingredients with a very long name, comes in like white flakes, which you have to grind up in a processor. It is just a soap, so you could eat out of that processor afterwards, but I would give it a really good wash, and because it's a really strong concentrated soap. If you were going to do that, I actually have a processor I thrifted, which I use for my cosmetics. So I ground mine up. You can in some countries buy this ingredient in powdered form already, but I can't in the UK. So I ground mine up, and then you add in this liquidy soap ingredient that's also got a long name. You mix that in. You have to wear a mask whilst doing this bit because the flake powder thing is like really easy to breathe in. It'd be really bad for you. So once you've mixed that liquid in, it's no longer floaty in the air. It's much easier to handle. And then you mix in the coconut oil, you mix in essential oils if you want, and the preservative, and then I added in my petals. And then you put it into a mould, and you could just put it into a silicone like cupcake mould. Again, I wouldn't use the same mould to eat out of afterwards because essential oils are quite strong. I learnt the hard way. All of my cereal bars tasted floral after I used it to make some shampoo last time. But yeah, this one's a bit tacky because I only did it last night, so it needs to dry out a little bit more. But once it's fully dry, I'll be able to use it. Unlike soap, it doesn't need a really long curing time because there's no lye in it. But the only fancy thing I've got, I mean, all of that I just did in a bowl in the kitchen on the side. The only fancy thing I've got, my partner and I, because he's an engineer, we made a mould last year. Because my only problem was I was struggling to compact the mixture well enough into a silicone mould with a spoon. So he made me this 2-part mould. So you know, you put half of it into the bottom of the tube, you put the mixture in, you put that bit on top, and then you hammer it down and it compacts the mixture together. I left it overnight in the metal thing, and then this morning I managed to get it out, and I'm just leaving it another 24 hours or so to dry, and then it'll be ready to use, which is good because I haven't got very much left. But yeah, so that was good, and it smells, sorry to hit the ironing board, it smells amazing. So that was like my skin project of the month. I made loads of moisturiser a couple of weeks ago, so that's keeping me going strong. I would like to learn to make my own solid conditioner, but I haven't got there yet. It's probably just some form of fancy conditioning soap, so it's probably not that big a deal. But the thing with making soap, I find it really hard to make small quantities because it's quite a big process. So making 1 or 2 bars is kind of like that. The solid shampoo is really easy to make in just 1 bar. But with all the lye and everything, it just makes sense to do quite a lot. So I probably made 3 years supply of solid soap in one go last year. It's just going to last me forever. So yeah, solid shampoo. I mean, I bought my bar over a year ago and I'm still using it, so for that kind of price it just kind of seems pointless making it myself. Better to support a local maker. But yeah, so there was that. Yeah, if it interests you, I'll put the link below. I probably spent about £50 on ingredients, but I calculated that might make me about 20 bars of shampoo. So given that each bar is about £8 in Lush, it's definitely cheaper for me. And you know, it only took me 5 minutes to make it. I would say I could make some and sell them, but actually you've got to have all kinds of certificates and all sorts of things to sell cosmetics. And I would imagine a big part of the price of selling these things by local producers anyway is that they're paying all the taxes and for the certificates and the testing and the rights to sell cosmetics and stuff like that. So I'm definitely not going to get into that. Sorry, that's why I don't sell any of my handmade hand creams or anything, because even though I'm really confident in them and I really love them and I think they're fabulous products, it's not worth my time and energy for all of the paperwork I'd have to go through. But yes, so I'll talk about sewing and then I'll talk about the shop update. The shop update is knitting related, so if you are interested in knitting stuff, you could skip ahead to that if sewing isn't something you're interested in. But yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about one of my favourite sewing patterns. Oh, also, I guess another thing that I made recently was this necklace. So I really like having long necklaces to wear with my plainish linen tops. This was some wooden beads I bought quite a long time ago in a bead shop, and because I was making my stitch markers, I had some of the metal bits to join them together, so I just made a pendant and then hung it on it's just on some string, to be honest, which isn't the best, but it's all I had lying around and I haven't replaced it yet. So, but yeah, sewing. So one of my favourite sewing pattern designers is a maker called So Liberated. She actually has done the pattern for this lichen duster, which is a jacket. It looks like a dress there because it's backwards, but it's a duster jacket. And she's done so many amazing patterns. I've made quite a few of them. Her estuary skirt, which is like a elastic back front with a flat front, optional buttons down the front and big pockets. I've made her aranite pants, which are elastic waist, big pocket trousers. What else have I made by her? Gypsum skirt, which is elastic around the waist with big pockets. Most of her, I think all of her patterns have an adjustable waist and big pockets. They're very functional, and that's why I like her patterns, because I don't want to invest time and money into making something that's only going to fit me for a very specific part of my life. If I'm going to go to the effort of making something, I want it to fit on every day of the month comfortably, whether I've eaten a huge piece of cake, a takeaway dinner, or nothing. Like, I want to always feel comfortable. Now, I don't know whether everyone is the same. I'm sure many people are. That as a person who goes through the monthly cycle, some days I feel really like bloated and fat, and wearing fitted jeans or trousers isn't something that feels right for me. They might fit well whilst I'm stood up, but when I'm sat down at my desk or my sewing machine, things feel uncomfortable, and I like high waists, and that exacerbates the problem even further. So having things adjustable or loose around the waist is really good for me. And so this pattern, the Hinterland dress, I was looking at it this morning. I think this is my 4th version. And so this fabric I bought the other week when I went to Merchant & Mills. I shared that with you last time. And it's a simple dress that's got a gathered skirt. It's got inseam pockets, so I've made mine using the leftovers from my Ashton tank I shared with you last time. Also Merchant & Mills linen. So it's like a pink linen with an orange check. And if I stand on the chair, you can see the length of the script. This might cause something to wobble. so it's just above the knee. So this is a slightly modified version of the Hinterland dress. So I'm just trying to come down really slowly. Oh, I'm a bit unstable on my feet. I have actually, so I based this on the longer sleeve version, which is a 3/4 sleeve. It comes down to just past my elbow. So I wanted to make a summer version of a dress that I wear a lot, which I'm going to show you in a second. So the standard Hinterland dress has a sleeve down to here. I shortened the sleeve to a long short sleeve because the dress has options of a short cap sleeve, which is up to about here, or a longer sleeve. And I really wanted that longer short sleeve because I don't like a cap sleeve. I find it a bit annoying under here. But I kind of felt like the longer sleeve maybe was a bit more autumnal. And so I quite like this length. I think it's quite elegant. I raised the neckline, which I've done on nearly all of my Hinterlands. So it's a bit higher. I think normally it's down here. And for me, when I lean forward, if it's that low, it's just too flappy. And I took quite a bit off the length. I am not sure how long the skirt length is meant to be, but I made mine considerably above the knee. So this is long enough that I can wear it with bare legs in the summer. But it's also, you know, it looks all right with leggings, how I've got it on today, so I'll be able to wear it through the autumn and winter if I want to wear a yellow dress in the winter. But for me, this is my summer linen dress because about 2 years ago I made this one. And oh, and another thing I do is I never bother with facings. I hate facings. I always bias bind necklines and armholes, and that's what I've done with this one as well. But rather than making my bias binding, I've bound it with blue to match the check, so it's the same. So I made this one, and so this one's longer. It's also got pockets, but this is made from other scraps. This is scraps from another Hinterland dress I made, and it's got the longer sleeve, as you can see. Like, it's quite a bit longer, comes past my elbow. And I absolutely live in this dress. The linen is also Merchant & Mills. It's so soft because I've worn it so much. I've had to repair it a few times, but you know, that's okay. So, and I think I've probably worn it on this podcast before. But because I love this dress so much, because it's linen, like there were times in the summer where I wanted to wear it because it feels so freeing when it's hot. But I felt weird wearing something in these colours when it was really hot outside. It just felt a bit wrong. So this was kind of like the summer version of that. So I know I'll wear this one a lot because I've worn this one a lot. So yeah, it's so soft. I'm hoping in time this one will become equally soft. But that one was this is my third Hinterland I've made. And this one also has a raised neckline. The first one I ever made... Oh, I've just realised there is another Hinterland I've made which I haven't got here. So these numbers are slightly off. There is a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there is a fifth. This is the first one I ever made. So you can see it's got a bigger scoop. And I made this with a linen I got on eBay. It was about £10 a metre. I have bound the neck in pink. This was binding that I made, but not the sleeves. It's got the full placket, it's long, it's got patterned pockets, and these are mother of pearl buttons, and they do open and close, and then it's got the thing at the back. Now I made this in the size it was recommended for me to make on my bust size, but it's too big. So for the one I made following that, I sized down. But I really like this. This is like quite a good house dress, or, you know, I need something a bit rough or hard wearing. I wear this one quite a lot. I think it has actually got some splashes of wax on the skirt somewhere because I think I wore it while I was candle making, which is a bad idea. But yeah, I've had this one maybe 3 years. and I wear it like a lot, especially in the winter. It's good with a jumper, but it is a bit big and it does make me feel a bit frumpy. So for the next one I made, my second one, I sized down, and that was this one. I don't think I raised the neckline on this one. I think this one is the original neckline, although it doesn't look as deep as the blue, so maybe not. It's hard to tell because it is a size smaller. And I've made this one from Atelier Brunette viscose rayon. And it was one of my absolute favourite dresses. It's really drapey, it's a lovely colour, it's like a deep ochre colour. But the fabric is worn really badly. It's bobbly in places. I mean, you can tell now that I've gotten better at my sewing because in places it's not that great. But the way the fabric is worn, can you see? I don't know, I don't think it's focusing. But it's really bad here, and it's quite bad on here in places, and on the back as well where you sit, it's really bad. So even though it was a really pretty, quite elegant shape, because it's so light, it pulled in really well. And now I don't really wear it anymore because I'm really hyper aware of how it's worn and I don't like it. Really, I should wear it maybe with a cropped sweater over the top to hide this. I don't know, I think it's such a shame. I wouldn't go to a lot of effort making something with that fabric again, just because what's the point if it's not going to wear well? It's actually quite interesting having look at it because I can see how well I've improved my sewing since I made that. Or maybe linen is just much easier to work with. I did also make, which I haven't got with me, a sleeveless green version, which was just really high necked. I had to lower the neck a little bit to make it so high at the front, and that was made from a green cotton hemp blend. But I also thought I'd share with you that I used the skirt pattern, the skirt part of the pattern, to make a couple of, trying to get the right way around, a couple of these skirts. So it's just the panels, the pattern panels for the skirt and the pockets. So you make the skirt how you would for the dress, and then rather than attaching it to a bodice, I folded the top down, put an elastic in, stitched over the elastic so it doesn't twist in there, and then I made some straps. And on the skirt part there's a button, and then on the strap there's a buttonhole. But because I wanted the strap ends to sit inside, I've put secret buttons on the inside, and that's where the straps attach. So let me undo one. So that's the outside. Rather than having the end hang like that, which I didn't want, I think that looks untidy, I've got it on the inside. So, but the good thing is, like, you could make it adjustable. You could have multiple buttonholes on there. And I've made one of these in a Merchant & Mills linen, obviously. This is called Winter's Hymn, I think. And I made one in a grey version of the linen that I used to make that blue Hinterland as well. So again, I've got one that's quite sort of rough and scruffy. That one particularly so because it's actually got bleach marks on it. And then like a bit of a nicer one. So yeah. I think it's a really lovely pattern. I think it's got lots of options. I really like the shape of it. I initially didn't like the shape of it when I made the blue one, but I think my sizing was just completely off. So yeah, it just shows how important it is to get the right size. But I think it could even make a nice top, you know, like if you made it a little bit longer in the bodice, it could make quite a nice top. I know people that have. I think it would just be a little bit too short on its own without adding some length, because as you can see the line is here. The bottom of my bra is like a centimetre above that, so it would be quite flashy. Maybe that's your cup of tea, I don't know. So yeah, that's the sewing. I say that quite a lot, I'm sorry. the last thing I want to share with you is shop it update stuff if you are interested. A week or two ago I reopened my Etsy shop. It's not been open since I was in my early 20s, mid 20s maybe. When I left Paris to move to Birmingham, I closed it because I had been selling hand decorated moleskin notebooks, and I closed it whilst I was moving to England, and I never reopened it because I realised it wasn't very profitable. I was putting quite a lot of time and energy into it, and that wasn't really worth my while. And leaving France to move to England was a very emotional process for me because I'd never intended to leave Europe. I intended to stay there forever, but I met somebody and life changes. So it was more important to get my head around that than a barely profitable Etsy shop. So I just left it. So I obviously have been selling things on Instagram slowly, a little bit by bit. But I realised it probably wasn't the most enjoyable experience for you guys because you can't browse in your own time. It's a little bit stressy because if you see the story, you've got to buy it then. And buying more than one thing maybe is a bit confusing. With a shop, you can see everything, you can make considered decisions, it can bind to the postage, etc. I do pay a little bit more doing it that way. On the other hand, I think I probably made more money overall because more people are happy buying in that way. So I probably will continue to do it like that. I mean, there's obviously a reason why Etsy is so popular. I admit I was initially a bit like, because they do charge a lot more than they used to. I might have to put my prices up like by 50p for the next update because a couple of things I'm not making what I wanted to on them, but you know, that's fine. It was a test run. So there are still a few bits available. I have one of the mushroom stitch markers I showed you earlier, a couple of the pumpkins, some like moon and star sets, I would encourage you to look at the shop for better photos than I'm going to be able to show you on here. And just one, at the time of recording this, just one of these left. So this is a autumn sock set. So this is dyed on the regular sock yarn. So that's 75% wool and 25% polyamide. And I've naturally dyed these with kitchen scraps. So you have a mini in like burnt orange, a mini in mustard, and then the main in like an olive. And there is 140 grams here, so that's 588 meters approximately. So that would do me 2 pairs of socks actually, to be honest. But maybe like one long pair, or one men's pair, or 2 smaller women's pairs. I mean, totally up to you. Yeah, so I only did 2 of these, one sold, and so this is the other one. And then there's just some handwritten information on the back. So yeah, there's one of those left. And then I did want to share with you, because I was quite excited by this. Ooh, what's that on it? I bought these really lovely paper bags to wrap all the orders up in. I really love them because they've got a moon. It was a bit of an indulgence, but I figured if I was going to be selling quite a few things, then investing in some nice packaging was a good thing to do. So I do try to recycle the exterior packaging as much as possible. Not only is that cheaper for you guys, but because I have been buying a lot of things online since COVID, I save them all. But I like, even if the outside packaging that gets beaten up around in the postal system is a bit ugly looking, I really hope that when you open it, inside there's a pretty package. So yeah, I've been using those. And some little handmade labels that I've been popping in as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I did have one acquisition which I can see, so I'm going to grab it. Just one very tiny 50-gram acquisition. Sorry, it's probably going to be a lot of like, I'm trying to navigate around all the stuff that's in this room because I'm in my office. I don't know how much of that you heard. I'm in my office, so there's stuff kind of everywhere. I've cleared a space for me to film today, but around me it's chaos. So I did buy a 50-gram skein from Nellie and Eve. So this is the colour Moss, and it's Exmoor Blueface, BFL and Wensleydale. And it's a 4-ply, but I think it's quite a plump 4-ply. And it's looking quite washed out. I bought it, I must admit, I bought it because I have a mini skein in a similar colour by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company, and the picture on Instagram was really bright. It is perhaps more dull in real life than I was anticipating, but really I think I've learned from buying naturally dyed yarns, if I want an exact colour, it's not going to happen, and I need to learn my lesson with that. Or I thought I had, but clearly I hadn't. So yeah, anyway, it's not as bright as I would have hoped, but it is still a lovely colour. And I have these other 2 skeins, which are Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company, pale blue and like a really bright pink. And I did think that together they would make a really nice shawl. The only thing is I've got 100 grams of these and 50 of this, so I need to think of a pattern, but I think that'd be really good together. That isn't really why I bought this colour, but yeah, I think that will work. So that was my acquisition, and I will say it's much squishier and softer than the Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co yarn. Although this is a Cheviot. This is the Cheviot, so maybe that's why, I don't know. I will, like, bonus project, I will show you. Ages ago I said I was going to do some colour work mittens. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to knock things over. Oof, I'm going to have a lot to tidy up after this. So I will just share it with you because I'm going to frog it. You can't see at all the colour work, it's just not working. I think it's a real shame. But there we go. What can we do? I did think about doing the purple and this, but I think I'd have the same problem as I had with the grey. I don't think it would stand out. So there you go. That's going to get frogged. Anyway, that's all I'm going to share with you today. It's been 54 minutes. That's a really long time. It's much longer than I'd hoped it would be. So I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, I will speak to you in a few weeks. And I hope you're knitting on gorgeously squishy autumnal things. And yeah, speak to you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.